Good evening. It's now 7 o'clock, and I call the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council to order. Please join us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda is announcements. The council will hold its first budget workshop of the year on Monday, June 27th at 5 p.m. to discuss the 2023 budget. The council will also discuss budget pressures and fees and revenues for 2023 on Monday, July 25th at 5 p.m. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone wanting to attend our council meetings or workshops in person to contact our city clerk in advance. In other announcements, classic car shows are back and run every other Wednesday evening starting June 8th from 5 to 8 p.m. Organized by the Victoria Business Association, classic car owners from all over the metro display their classic cars throughout Victoria's downtown. This is such a fun event for the entire family. Everyone is invited, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Backed by popular demand is the Victoria Farmers Market. That will start up right after the 4th of July holiday and run through the end of September this year. We thank our partners, the Southwest Metro Chamber of Commerce, Carver County Public Health, and Enki Brewing, who have helped make this market possible. Join us Thursday afternoons from 3 to 6 in the Enki Brewery lower parking lot from July 7th to September 22nd for produce and other locally produced foods and sweets. Before we move on, our city manager would like to take a moment for a special announcement. Ms. Hardy, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. At this time, I'd just like to invite my three colleagues to just step up to the podium. We have three new employees that have joined us recently, and we just wanted to take a moment to introduce them formally to the council and to all of our residents. So with that, I'm going to start with Jen Brewington. Jen is our new Community and Economic Development Director. She joins us from the city of Shakopee, where she focused on business recruitment, retention, and economic development. And so with that, she'll continue those types of work along with development, working along with Isaac and the rest of our development team here in the city and moving the needle forward on all of the commercial and residential development here in the city. So please join me in welcoming Jen to the team. And then we have Claudia Ediswold, and Claudia comes to us from the city of Burnsville, where she worked in the licensing and code enforcement division. She is our new deputy city clerk and executive assistant, and in that role, she'll be learning the elections ropes and doing a bunch of different projects related to different special, lot of special projects. And with that, she will be assisting with the community event, a lot of our annual processes. So things like our policy manual review that we do every year, and things like our coordinating our consultant reviews as well, all important things. Just to name a few. And then Eric is our, I'm going to attempt to pronounce your last name. Shooty. Thank you. Shooty is our IT manager, and he's been with us for a few months already. When did you start, Eric? In March. And so he's done amazing work in bringing us out of kind of that dependency on our consultant, and really done a great job in that transition and bringing a higher level of service to our end users, and really doing some cool things, very low cost, low hanging fruit right now. So doing an excellent job. So these are our newest members of the team. So please join me in welcoming them all.
Welcome to Jen, Claudia, and Eric. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you.
Thank you all.
There are no proclamations this evening, so our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt final agenda?
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to our next item, and that is open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not an application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. No one has registered in advance to speak, but is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council? Seeing no one, we will now move on to our next item, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation or are housekeeping items that are required by law. They are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent items for separate discussion and vote?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Council, any items that you'd like to see pulled from the consent? Councilmember Black, please.
5.11.
Okay, noted. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull an item for discussion and separate vote? Ms. Patnode, let the record reflect that item 5.11 has been pulled for further discussion. Council, can I get a motion for the balance of the consent agenda, please?
Motion for the balance of the consent agenda?
And can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item 5.11, which was removed from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote. Councilmember Black, please.
I pulled that because the temporary sign that they're looking for the Volksfest, where they were asking for 30 days, but our ordinance says that we can only do 10. But when I was looking through things, I saw that if we were to do a second permit for 7 days prior to that one without an additional fee, that would give the sign visibility during car show, which I think would be very beneficial. And then it would run from August 24th to September 10th, which would be the day of the Volksfest. And I was hoping that council would agree on that. I know that when the Planning Commission discussed it, they knew that that was something that they needed to address down the road, but that it hadn't gotten to it yet.
Okay. Ms. Hardy, is there any concern about that? Do we need to issue an additional permit or get an additional permitting fee?
Mayor and members of the council, the way that your code is written, it's a prohibited sign. It's allowed with council approval up to 10 days. I think that more specific information is in the background. I'm looking at Isaac to bail me out if I'm saying anything wrong here. But and so with that, they did submit a permit for those 10 days. And so if council were interested in the extension, as Councilmember Black is suggesting, my recommendation, I'm going to look at Bob to make sure I'm guiding you correctly, would be to approve the application for 10 days and maybe approve a second application that could run the 7 days to get to that start date. Council could select to waive any associated fees with that.
Okay. Council, questions? Councilmember Gunderson?
Just looking to Bob, what does this do for precedent on future permits? Because basically we're taking now our 10-day and would be giving, from if I'm reading this correctly, a free 7 days. Does that just make this all of a sudden a 17-day on all future decisions on this? Or is there a way that we can word this so that it's a temporary sign that directly relates to a event in Victoria, by Victoria business, all Victoria businesses, so we don't have somebody coming in saying, well, you gave them 17, now we should get 17 too. So I just want to make sure that we've got ourselves covered on things that are directly benefiting our downtown versus somebody else coming in with a banner that may not benefit.
Bose?
Mayor and Council, I think it's a good question, a good concern to have. I always want you to be thinking about, are you setting something up that you can't sustain with a different applicant or a different circumstance? I think in this case, it's not a problem. As I understand the code language, your code is meant to say that the council can allow a temporary and very short-term use of the right-of-way for signage where you deem it appropriate. The point of the 10-day is just to make sure that there is an end date, a very short time period end date. There's nothing in the language that says you can't issue back-to-back permits, which I take it is what staff is proposing would be a 10-day permit and then issuance of a immediately following 7-day permit. That's fine. I think we need to follow that formality, but waiving the fee on the second permit application and setting up an additional consecutive 7 days is not a problem. The point again is just to make sure that these are short and that they end.
Thank you, Mr. Vos. Other questions? Council? All right, with that, then I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to add 7 days to the permit.
And waive.
So this is a resolution.
Ms. Patno?
Yep, sorry. So this is a resolution, so how are you going to word that? To just extend? Or should
From
we
the
put the wording
24th.
in there? To extend it?
Mayor, members of the council, maybe just a thought, and I'm looking to Attorney Vos for some guidance here, but perhaps to make a motion to approve the resolution,
And then adding
and then add a second approval for the time period that the council wishes to approve that second permit.
Mr. Vos, is that agreeable?
Mayor and Council, that's fine. Yeah, there's no requirement that you do this by resolution. And so to the extent you want to adopt this resolution and then make a second motion to approve a second.
We don't need to?
You can do that.
So we don't need to, or we don't need to do a second resolution?
Mayor and Council, you can tonight adopt it. You can do it two ways. You can either make a motion to amend this resolution to add some additional language, vote on that motion, and then vote on the amended resolution, or I think you can adopt the resolution as written and then make separately a motion to grant a second 7-day permit that starts immediately after. Either way works. A resolution isn't required, so.
Well, it'd be immediately before, because I want it from the 24th to the 1st, and then the one that they're asking for is from the 1st to the 10th.
Okay, so,
So how do we,
all right, let's do two separate,
Should we do the
Councilman-
original resolution?
yeah, do the
first?
original resolution.
all right. So,
Do you want me to read that, Judy, if you don't have it? Adopt resolution, wrong one. Approve resolution granting permission for placement of a temporary sign over Victoria Drive, public right-of-way.
all right, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And can I get the second?
Second one is to add an additional 7 days prior to the first amendment so that they can put their sign up on August 24th
And waive the,
and waive the fee.
okay. Does everybody have, Ms. Patno, do you have that? All right. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can I get clarification on who made the motion in second? I just got
Judy
I
made the motion.
Alvin second,
Alvin
okay.
second. All right.
Thank you.
We are now moving on to our regular agenda. We have several items on our regular agenda this evening. Item 6.1 was done under announcements earlier, introducing our new staff member. So we're moving on to 6.2, which is a mid-year report on annual work plan from our Planning Commission. Introducing the topic is our senior planner, Isaac Peterson. Mr. Peterson, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, this evening, we have Planning Commissioner Vice Chair Avansky with us to kind of do a rundown of the Planning Commission's mid-year report and what the commission's been up to leading up to this point.
Terrific. Commissioner Evansky, please come on up to the podium and introduce yourself for the record and tell us what you guys been up to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. For those who don't know me, my name is Greg Avansky and of 8048 Savannah Valley Way, and I am the Vice Chair of the city's Planning Commission, and I'd like to present to the council and those present some of the things that the Planning Commission has accomplished in the first half of 2022. So I'm just going to take some time to bore you a little bit with the protocol and just maybe have a little bit of flavor on each item. So back in January of this year, we adopted our work plan, which is setting forth what the Planning Commission wants to accomplish in the year of 2022. And then we reviewed the sketch plat for Brookmore, which is an area of the city that is north of the existing Savannah Valley neighborhood and abuts the north of Holy Family High School, in which case that is going to bring the extension of Cochia Lane to be fully through from County Road 18 all the way up to Highway 5. So then in February, we reviewed the final plat of Marsh Hollow's first edition. And so this is formerly the rolling hills north of the railroad tracks down at the south end of town, and bringing an annexation into the city, and Victoria Drive and the improvements that are going to take place with the county on Victoria Drive was a part of that process, as you guys may recall. And then in February, mid-February, we reviewed the sketch plat for Timber Glen, and Timber Glen is going to be situated north of Marsh Lake Road. It adjoins an existing subdivision to the west, and then to the east is still farmland, and then there's going to be the talk of completion of the existing timber trail stub, and then I think one of the, as we'll find out later, we just recently had an additional commentary that I'll cover in a little bit. So then in March, we were reviewing and discussing residential zoning district code updates. So this was a project that was started by Marty Dahl before he left, and is going to continue in capable hands on standardizing the language in our what are acceptable property uses, alternate uses, et cetera, and then to bring the various residential districts that we have aligned with each other to, to take out some ambiguity, bring some consistency, and have some clear lines of demarcation. In April, we had the Planning Commission engage in its changing of the guard, so to speak. So we re-elected Chair Iverson for another term, and then we elected myself to be the vice chair. And then we held a public hearing for a variance on a setback change and for a property located at 5671 Zumber Drive. And I think that the Planning Commission was excited about doing this particular one because it took a very irregular shaped lot and allows a family, the Hoppies, to build their dream home and continue to stay in Victoria and stay committed to the community that we live in. And I think that the commission loves to see action take place, and this was one of those things where it was just, in addition to being just a good idea and the right thing to do for our citizens, just brings goodwill and says to all their neighbors, like, hey, this is a great reason to stay in Victoria because they care about their residents and they get things done. On from there, in the latter part of April, we reviewed the sketch plat of Hunters Brook Second Edition, which is a parcel that sits north of the Marsh Hollow, so formerly Rolling Hills, and that has continued to move on, as I'll discuss. In May, at the beginning of May, we held a public hearing to request an amendment to a conditional use purpose for 7600 Victoria Drive. So for those who remember that there was a conditional use permit that was granted, I want to say late in 2021 for 7600 Victoria Drive, which is the group home that now they are expanding their meals program and are recognizing that on site they don't have enough cooler capacity, so they're looking to amend that conditional use to be able to accommodate bringing more food on site to keep it fresh and can serve more serve more meals throughout, the Twin Cities. Again, I think that the Planning Commission really enjoyed working on this to move forward for council for that conditional use amendment to move forward so that they can continue to do the work that they are doing out there. So then in the latter part of May, we held a public hearing to consider the preliminary plat and zoning proposed for the Brookmore development mentioned earlier, which is Brookmore is going to be, again, north of Savannah Valley and the high school. We also held a public hearing to consider the preliminary plat and zoning for Timber Glen development mentioned earlier. And then we held a public hearing to consider a rear yard setback and variance request for a property at 1965 Primrose Lane, which due to a surveying error when the subdivision was platted and houses were, carved out and staked out, that there wasn't enough room in the backyards for a reasonable addition to the back of the homes to provide a deck and outdoor space that's commensurate with the homes and the other characters in the neighborhood. And then that was a little bit different. Some of the other variances that had taken place in that neighborhood and this that requires an actual agreement with the landowners to encroach into the easement area, and that I believe is on your agenda tonight, to follow the Planning Commission's request or recommendation to approve that variance as well. Then last, as you are just familiar with, we reviewed the Volksfest request to put the sign up, and I think that similar ground was covered at the Planning Commission as has been covered here tonight, that it feels like it's the right thing to do for the community and be able to bring a message, and then, not only that, just sort of set us up for a future approach to having yet another way to promote Victoria and the good work that's going on here. It feels as though, and it certainly was the opinion of the Planning Commission, that we would like to see more of a good thing, but approach it cautiously and do the right thing. Outside of that, then that summarizes what we had done. And so on the horizon of what we intend to do is on the upcoming items. In June, we're going to continue to work on a new sketch plat for the Gannon property right around the corner. In July, the plan is to work on Downtown West Phase 1 of their preliminary plat and the TIF consideration. I think that is going to be an interesting thing to skill build so that people can, refresh themselves with TIF in case they've been away from it for a while, or some people will see it for the very first time. We're going to continue to work on our zoning code updates and that alignment there. Hopefully that should be a very straightforward process, because earlier in the year, a considerable amount of legwork had been done on that. And shout out to Isaac, who's going to pick up the charge with that, and I'm confident he's going to do a great job. In August, we're going to look at Huntersbrook Second Edition for their preliminary plat and zoning, and then other things that as the commission and the projects move forward is to look at the final plat for Brookmore, which is, maybe we can think of that as synonymous with Chia extension and the good work that's been done to try to address residents' concern about traffic. It seems like there's some good solutions that are on the table, and there's been good traffic studies on the impact that might have. Outside of that, we'll continue to follow up and provide recommendation to the City Council on the Small Area Plan, which is the Victoria Works, including development of new zoning districts. Still consider more potential ordinance additions, amendment to address placemaking standards. I think we had an interesting discussion on what is placemaking, and it seemed like placemaking is everything that placemaking is not. So the sign over that we just talked about, that's placemaking. Sandwich boards, placemaking. Other perhaps things that could be considered placemaking might be considering having banners that are attached to the streetlight poles in the downtown that say celebrate, X anniversary. So those kind of things will be brought into the fold in the discussion. And then finally, participate in discussions related to potential implementation of a rental licensing program. So outside of that, we'll move forward to a progress on some of the work plan items. Of the 9 items, 6 have already been started and are in progress. We're going to hear recommendations on 2 more sketch plats, 2 more preliminary plats, 1 final plat, a variance, and a conditional use permit. We're going to continue on the residential districts in section 32 of the Plan Unit Development Code for those who like, that still remains in progress. And then, not quite started yet, will be the recommendations to the City Council on changes needed to the sign regulations in the Victoria City Code. From there, there are still things that are, a number of items that are still in the works, one of which is the discussions related to the potential impact of this rental licensing program, review and provide recommendations on the city's 13.5 acres in downtown West. That still continues to be in progress. Things that not started, but certainly on the docket will be review the ordinance additions to the placemaking and then provide follow-up again on the works plan. And then in the 2022 work plan, we're going to hear recommendations just on the City Council to sketch plats, preliminary plats, essentially, more of what the Planning Commission is engaged to do. And then continue to review the plan unit development, discussions about potential, and essentially remainder of all the things that we've discussed.
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner Evansky.
So if there are any other questions, I appreciate the time, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank the staff. They make the Planning Commission look good. Our good work is really a reflection of their efforts. And having been a recent graduate of the Citizens Academy, we were given a flavor for the Planning Commission. I was pretty much well-schooled in that myself, but it's a fabulous opportunity for everybody who volunteers for the city. I highly recommend that they take a moment to consider attending that. There's a lot of valuable information, and it just makes your volunteer experience that much better. So,
Thank you for that nice plug for the Citizens Academy. It is a good and a good program and gives you a rich understanding of what happens in the city of Victoria every day.
great. And, as we have all seen how competitive it is to volunteer. So I just wanted to also say a moment of thanks to the City Council for giving all of us on the Planning Commission their thumbs up on having us serve the community. It really is a benefit for us personally to see these things go forward and be a part of our city's growth and future. So thank
Well,
you.
we certainly appreciate the good work that you guys have done. So thank you for that. Thank you to you and your fellow commissioners. Council, questions, comments for Mr. Evansky before?
That's pretty thorough. Pretty thorough presentation.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for all the work that you are doing.
Thank you. We're glad to do it. So thank you for your confidence and support.
Councilmember Gunderson?
Just, Isaac, off the top of your head, do you know, I saw 5 plats, and I don't have, I can look them up, but would you know how many homes those 5 plats? And does anybody? I mean,
Oh, Councilmember Gunderson, Mayor, members of the council, you're putting me on the spot. I want to say
on average?
per plat, I think in the last several months here, we've done north at 250 lots total.
It's a lot of new
Quite a
neighbors.
few.
It's a lot of new neighbors. Terrific. Anything else, Council?
No.
Commissioner Evansky, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
That was informational only, so we don't need to take any action on that, but item 6.3 is also a mid-year report on the annual work plan items from our Park and Rec Committee. So kicking us off this evening is our Park and Rec Director, Ann Monkey. Miss Monkey, as she scrambles to her chair.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm not going as fast as I used to go. This evening, the Chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee, Larry Schultz, is here this evening. He'll provide a rundown of activities that the Park and Rec Committee has taken on this year already, and also then we'll dive deep into a future, what the future holds for this year. So, Larry, please Take it away.
Mr. Schultz, welcome. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to be here. Larry Schultz, 1148 Parkview Court. It's great to be here, and I want to commend the council for supporting parks in our community. I mean, I see they're being used a lot. I hear many comments from new residents that that's why they moved here, is because of the parks, the trails, et cetera. And your support of that's very important for us as a community. Just in recap, some of the things that we did this year, Wasserman Lake Preserve is our newest addition to our parks. And this year we're focused on, since it just opened, we had an open house and we're having programming. We started a volunteer program out there as well. Rentals are starting to take place out there and it's being used. And I've been out there a few times myself and talked to some people that were out there and they were excited about it, especially people out in that neighborhood. One of the other things that we did this first part of the year is we reviewed the Brookmore Addition. We had recommended a dedication fee as opposed to the parkland. And the reason that we did that is for a couple things. We see our role as looking at our comprehensive plan and recommending to the council what's consistent with that plan for your consideration. And also those park dedication fees, not just for that, but for others that we receive, go forward to support other park projects down the road. So we will continue to do that and recommend things for your consideration along those lines. Emerald ash borer, we've learned a lot more about emerald ash borer than we ever wanted to know. And you probably have too. Unfortunately, those little bugs have arrived in our beloved community, and we are reviewing each year the plan and what's taking place, and encourage continuation of treatment of, the appropriate size parkland trees and boulevards, and encourage our residents to take advantage of discounts they get as well for treating their own trees. Some of the other things that you're going to see shortly, we worked on reconstruction plans for the tennis, was courts, now going to be a tennis court at Lions Park, and also the basketball court there that needs updating. I believe you might even see this week some dirt being moved in that particular park to get started with the reconstruction of those two things. We looked at trail gaps, incorporated some new areas that we reviewed and put on our list. We recommended 5 areas of focus for the future, ranging from the east side of Bavaria to the underpass on Highway 5 when those funds become available, to the Lake Bridge extension to along County Road 11, and then the Cochia extension that will really connect from Holy Family to Park Drive in that area, and then connection into the trail system in Carver Park Reserve down there. Pickleball's been a big topic. We happen to have the pickleball expert behind me. Jeanette June is on our park committee, and she has helped us in those discussions, and big interest in that in our community. Also, there's a number of community citizens that helped with input into that, helped Ann and helped the committee understand what was needed. And I believe the bids have been put out for that, and the council will soon receive a report from Ann on that development. So those are the main things we've done so far this year. The future, we hope to get resolution on the Bavaria trail gap east, at least part of it, the south part of that trail. The tennis and basketball courts should be done, hopefully by the end of the summer. hopefully by the end of the month. maybe July. We're almost at the end of June already. Pickleball court work will continue. We'll be starting the planning process for the phase 2 of the Lakeside Estates Park. We have that on our future planning for 2024. So those are probably our focus areas for the rest of the year. One other thing I'd like to add is we really like the parks. We like park expansions. We have a couple new parks, one done, one in the works. And also we need to understand that with that comes maintenance cost and upgrades. And so one thing that I know as a committee we're going to be focusing on is to make sure that we're recommending what we feel to the council, what we feel might be necessary to keep our great investment up to date, because we'd hate to spend the money and then have things from a maintenance standpoint fall short and end up spending money we don't have to spend down the future. And so we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We want to maintain what we have, but also continue to expand as our community expands. That's all that I had, unless there's any questions. Again, thanks for your ongoing support of parks in our community. I also like to comment on the process that you follow, not just for the Parks Committee, but planning and others. I've lived in a number of different cities, and I think the planning process you have with accountability for reports and how you break things out goal-wise, congratulations to the staff and the council for following that process. I think it's a great way to assure the community that things are being done and being addressed, and you're holding people accountable for the results. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz, and we share that value with you on the parks. We need to maintain those parks and keep those in good shape so that they can continue to be an asset to our community. So thank you for your work. Council, questions, comments? Nope, we're good.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Schultz. Again, there's no action needed, so we will move on to the next item, which is a mid-year update on the annual work plan from our Senior Advisory Committee. And Assistant City Manager Alyssa Swanson is going to introduce that topic for us. Ms. Swanson.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have a PowerPoint up for this evening. However, it's not loaded up on the presentation computer, so I do apologize for that. However, we do have Vice Chair of the committee, Susan Bill, here to speak on the committee's behalf. So with that, I would like to invite Sue up to the podium.
Ms. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor McMillan and City Council. Susan Bill, 1674 Victoria Drive. As I'm sure you're all familiar, we're the newest group or committee. I think maybe about a year and a half old. So hopefully our reports will get longer and more in-depth as we go along. Some of the highlights and accomplishments I want to talk about. In 2022, we adopted the committee work plan, which includes 8 objectives. We developed a community feedback survey for recreational programs and for seniors. The survey was shared at the Senior Expo and is scheduled to be shared through the city's communication channels in the future. In February 2022, the committee adopted their committee work plan with the 8 objectives. The work plan was adopted by the City Council later that month. The work plan includes communication and outreach to Victoria's aging population. It also brings to view Victoria's recreational amenities and hopes to recommend new programs or adapt new programs for seniors. Recommendations will be brought later this year to the Park and Rec Committee and staff. In April, we had developed a residential survey for recreation programs. The survey was passed out at the Senior Resource Expo in May and will be shared in the future. One of our big highlights was the first inaugural Senior Resource Expo, which was held May 17th at the Pavilion. The event brought in a variety. I believe there were 13 different vendors, which included dietitians, downsizing expert, transportation resources, And we were lucky enough that Southwest Prime actually brought out one of their Prime buses and had staff so everybody could see the excellent door-to-door service that they provide to our city residents. Carver County Library, Carver County Public Health. We had a variety of housing options. We had the CAP agency. I think we had MAAA, I forget what their new name is, which Minnesota Area Agency on Aging, which is a state resource. So we had a wide variety of topics that were there for educational, and there was wonderful interaction between the vendors and the participants. And I want to personally, as well as the committee, want to thank you, Alyssa, as well as the whole staff for your excellent job in organizing, promoting, and setting up the pavilion and making the event the wonderful event it was. In June of 2022, as mentioned, we'll review the Senior Expo, talk about the positives, how we want it to grow, and gather ideas for a future expo. Staff will do a presentation on a walkability program. July of 22, we'll have a discussion of the walkability program. August, we're going to discuss and analyze senior survey results and review of park and recreation programs. And then in September, have a discussion on the park and recreation programs and look to see what we might consider to suggest to the Park and Rec program for future programming, recreational programs for active older adults or seniors in our community. October, I guess I jumped ahead of myself, but October we're going to talk about Park and Rec programs. We're also going to review our 2021 senior resource packet. I would imagine that a number of us have been on the website to review the excellent resources that are on there for older adults. And then in November of 2022, we're going to review the senior resource packet, which is a very comprehensive, a 20-page packet that highlights not only resources in Victoria, Carver County, but as well as the state, with a lot of links and resources that older adults can easily tap into. And then December, we will review the senior resource packet, make proposals, and look at it for accuracy and make any changes. And with that, I just want to thank the council for having the vision to develop the senior advisory committee, and I know I, as well as the committee, look forward to growing and enhancing our aging population in Victoria.
Terrific, thank you. It's an important demographic to us, and we want them to stay here and be healthy and active as long as they can. So thank you so much for your work on that. Council, questions, comments? And again, we want to say thank you to Alyssa, who started that committee out of whole cloth and developed just a wonderful group of folks to support that initiative. So thank you to Alyssa. Again, there's no action needed on that, so we will move on. 6.5, regarding the bids received for our proposed pickleball courts. Presenting this evening is Park and Rec Director, Ms. Monkey. Please.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This evening, before you will be a discussion on the pickleball courts that were planned for construction in this year. As you know, they were planned to be out at the Recreation Center. Earlier this year, the council authorized design and then authorized to go out for bids for the 8 courts. We received on May 17th 3 bids, with the low bid being Park Construction for $489. I'm just going to go for 90, just to be round up just a little bit, so it'll be easier to say instead of 4999. So anyway, the Park Construction bid, the estimate, the engineer's estimate for the construction of the courts was originally at 383, which makes this bid construction amount about $106,000 over the engineer's estimate. So, and we have a estimated budget of about $500,000. In reviewing, trying to come up with a plan to figure out how we could reduce some of the costs, or we could reject bids, and I'm going to go through each item for you for your consideration this evening, since they were all over budget. But looking at the total cost of the project, capital improvement plan includes $500,000 for the project. If we were to accept the low bid and throw out the contingency, we had about a 10% contingency in the project itself, we'd end up with the design and bidding and construction management work. The total project cost is about $560,000, so we're roughly $60,000 over budget. Looking at things, so the council has the option to, one, we could reject the bids and rebid this fall or winter. We may be able to produce some additional bidders, but the bidding climate right now is not the greatest. And our engineers are saying that, the next 6 to 12 months, they're not going to anticipate any prices coming down. So we may still be in that same boat if we delay it for, 6 months or to a year. We could accept the low bid and reduce some of the amenities associated with the project. It is lit, which is about $86,000 to light the facility. There's also a shaded area that was just in here. It was just a small shaded area that had a sunshade. It had some concrete and some picnic tables. And that was about $31,500. So those are two of the things that I think we could at least look at taking out of the project to reduce that overall cost. I am not recommending that we take the lights out. There's a couple different factors that go into that. I think, one, it makes the facility playable for longer during the year. As we early spring, late fall, we don't have much daylight anymore. But the weather is still good enough for players to play outside. I know even in 2021, people were playing out in the middle of December. So I know that they're avid players and would take advantage of that. But the second thing is all the electrical would need to be installed underground. We've got light poles that are actually within the court itself. So it's going to, if we were to take the lights out and we're going to go try to put them back in the future, they'd be a lot more difficult to install and a lot more expensive to install because you'd end up having to rip up some of the courts and getting that electrical and the poles in. So not something that I would recommend. If we were to take them out, I'd just say leave them out and be done with it. So a third option that we could do is accept the low bid and utilize the park fund to cover the $60,000 that we're over in the budget today. That could have an impact on some of the future projects that we have planned on. And I know that I've attached the park fund for you so you can take a look at. We are projected in about 2025 to be at a negative balance within the fund, unless, of course, we get additional revenue coming in from developments, which I do anticipate that we would do. The number fourth option that I would like you to consider is to accept the low bid, eliminate the seating area, the shaded seating area, which is about $31,500, and then utilize also about $30,000 from the general fund that we had earmarked for playground replacement. In last year's budget and programs, we had purchased and made a purchase for a playground in Swiss Mountain. With the delays in manufacturing, and then we ordered it like in August, so delays in manufacturing, shipping, we just were able to install it this year. So we're gonna end up spending roughly about $45,000 for the playground. And in this year's budget, I had increased it to $75,000. So we're gonna have about $30,000 left over because I did have to make that purchase out of this year's budget. So again, we'd have $30,000 or so left over for that. So this is kind of that shaded area. It's covered. It's got picnic tables. But this is something that I think we could come back and do in the future because it's set off to the side and it's not really part of the park project or the court project itself. So
And how many picnic tables or how many people could sit under that?
we had about 3 picnic tables under there, so I'm guessing 12 to 15 people under it.
Got it.
You know, the one nice thing, it's right next to the building, and I know people like to socialize. But we're gonna try to put some trees in, not that they'd be ready to provide shade quite yet, but, we do have the building that folks could come in, if that's the route that the council would like to go, so.
If we don't do that now, would it be roughed in so we could put maybe some temporary tables or anything?
We have, council member, we have grass there right now, and that's probably what we'd leave it as. It was planned to be concrete, but that's part of that 31.5.
So we wouldn't do anything like rough it in or?
No, because it's set off from the courts themselves.
I had a question.
Yeah, Councilmember Black.
What about picnic tables with umbrellas, like they have at the restaurants?
And that's certainly an option, council member. One of the challenges that I would see is when we have storms, the shades that we were planning for here are very storm resistant. So otherwise, we'd have staff running out to try to get them and pick them up. Or do we put them out every night and take them in every night? So it would just be a logistic, but it's certainly something we could look at. There would still be a cost associated with that we don't have in the budget.
Okay, are you finished? Or is that the end of the presentation?
Almost.
Okay, because we interrupted you. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show you again, here is the total budget. So again, we were about $560,000 over. And the 4 choices that I have presented this evening. And I am recommending that we accept that low bid and eliminate the seated shading area and then use $30,000 from the general fund budget to get our cost at a total project of about $500,000, which we had, so.
Can you go back to the options, please?
Yeah.
Council, questions? Yeah. So just so I understand, and we have a $60,000 math problem to solve.
Correct. That's with not having any contingency for the project, but I'm pretty confident that we won't run into much there because it's already existing court surface, so.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah, so about 60,000 over budget.
okay, so I would favor trying to find the $60,000 we need to complete this thing as we have envisioned it. I always think that it's a better idea to take care of it now. I think I would favor using the $30,000 from the general fund and then going into the park fund and getting the rest of it. And that's one of our options. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
All right. So, yeah, Councilmember Hebert.
Sorry.
I am finished. That's my preference.
To your point earlier, Ann, right? If we were to do the seating later, it's going to be more than $31,000.
If trends continue, I would say yes. And plus, then you're still dealing with mobilization costs to come back in.
Potential disruption.
Yes.
This has been such a big priority for so many of our citizens, and I just think that amenity of that shaded seating area is a really lovely addition. So,
Well, yeah, because
Councilmember Black?
yeah, you're gonna have Councilmember
Black?
Yeah, you're gonna have all these people out there playing pickleball and no place to set anything or put it, they can't even set their, what are they gonna do? Set their water on the side on the ground or, I don't know. I agree with the mayor completely that we need to find the extra 30,000 from somewhere and do this right.
If you,
Prices are not going to go down for a long time.
Councilmember
and if you look at the courts, the two courts in Chanhassen have coverage, the one in Chaska has coverage, the ones in Eden Prairie all have some sort of shelter.
You need that, probably gonna get heat stroke.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, Councilmember Roberts.
So I think, can you go back one slide maybe? I thought there was, I'm just curious, like the Chanhassen ones do not have windscreen or anything. I mean, how, is that also sound, help with sound too? Or is that not doing it? Like, I'm just curious if how, because that's obviously 30,000. How important, I guess, is that to?
So, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor and members of the council, the windscreen, and we do have our experts here that play pickleball and they play them outdoors. That was a strong recommendation to include the wind screen. It's not sound, but it's wind. And with the way that winds have been around here lately, I would strongly recommend keeping that in.
Don't have them and people are there a lot. So I'm just curious if, because can you talk a little bit about what, if we do it all, right, it's going to affect some of our other things. So can you tell the public what some of those things might be affected?
Yeah, and short term, I don't see any issues if you were to take an extra 30,000 from there. We would just have to look out into the future and make some adjustments on when those projects were done. So probably looking at, maybe one project gets pushed out another year. When we talk about these big park projects at $400,000 and $500,000 and $600,000, 30,000 isn't really a lot to deal with. So, and I do anticipate with the building and the growth that the city is experiencing is that we will end up getting some additional park fund fees through the development process that are not necessarily accounted for in the capital or the park fund budget.
My only other question is not about the cost here, but as someone who walks in that area a lot during the summer, I know pickleball, right? Like a lot of people play it in the mornings, right? But you do see it in the evening and such too. Between soccer games, baseball games, and all that, it gets packed over there. I'm just curious, do we have any thoughts on if we ever need to expand parking in that area? What are our, I know we have the bigger parking lot on their side, but that gets filled with, soccer and baseball and such. And then the smaller side definitely gets full, which is the side these are gonna be on. I guess I'm just concerned about.
Yes, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor and Council. The large parking area that is, I'll say, just south of the existing rec center, so we've got two of them. When I've looked at the parking, the overall parking of that facility, the only big issues I've ever seen are when we have two high school hockey games that are like a Chaska and Chan game and another local Holy Family and Waconia game, where you have a lot of participants that and people that are coming to watch the game that are within a 20-mile radius. So that's the only time I've ever really seen it completely full. But yes, I would agree that there will be some parking issues on weekends that people will probably have to park in that back parking lot and walk. I'm going to guess that pretty soon the pickleball players are going to be asking me to put up pickleball only signs, parking signs in the back, but.
And I apologize if we've talked about this and I'm forgetting, but because with the skate park, right, like that's potentially or gonna move eventually. What is the plan for that?
So right now, depending upon when construction starts, we'll be looking at budgeting for a pad Right now, we're looking at Lions Park. It'd be on the north of the basketball court. That's our preferred spot right now. It's about the only spot that we have left that can go, that can accommodate something like that. So we'll be probably looking at, there's that, probably the $30,000 that we need for the pad, so.
Your donations can come in.
Councilmember Roberts, anything else?
Nope.
Terrific. Council, other questions, comments? Councilmember
If we take out of the general fund, does it affect the levy next year at all? And at what percentage?
Mayor, members of the council, so we'd be looking at doing this project this year, so we'd be looking at affecting this year's levy. So if that's something that the council wanted to direct staff to look for how to fund that this year, to cover that gap, I would maybe recommend that you give us as much flexibility and not limit where we're looking for those funds. And that just gives us a little bit more wiggle room to look more creatively at where it makes the most sense. It would not affect your levy in the fact that it would become higher or lower. It would impact potentially level of service of something, or doing postponing a project, delaying it into a future year, or making a decision not to do something that we had planned to do. Those are things that, if we're focusing just on the levy piece of it, the general fund, those would be the places that we'd be looking. There might be project savings and other parks projects or other projects that we might be able to pull from and look at, but I'd have to do that assessment with Trish to be able to let you know specifically how things, where we would fund that from and how that would look.
Parks fund then, and it gives you a lot of heartburn if we just pull from that?
If I had to make a choice, I would prefer that it come out of the park fund, the 30,000, and then the other 30 from the general for the playground, the extra money that we've got in there. So we're pretty tight within the existing budget, general fund budget. So I would, if you were going to make a decision on that, I would definitely prefer it to come out of the park fund.
Council, other questions, comments? All right, with that, then I would entertain a motion.
It's not one of these, but we can hybrid it.
Well, let me start then by, I would make a motion that we accept the low bid and do the project as planned, using $30,000 from our park fund and finding the balance in the general fund, giving staff the flexibility they need to shake the couch cushions for that.
And I will second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Can I say aye twice or three times? Elvin loves pickleball. All right.
Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Yes, motion carries. Very good. All right, we are moving on to item 6.6. Regarding the feasibility report for the Stieger Lake Lane West Phase 1 improvements and calling for a hearing. Presenting this evening is City Engineer Kara Guerin. Kara, waited till the last moment. Thank you for sticking with us.
Certainly.
Please.
I was able to do a little work while I waited my turn, so that worked out just well. This is, I don't have a formal presentation for you, but I am going to pull up the packet so I can highlight a couple of pages from the feasibility report. So all you're being asked to do tonight is to accept the feasibility report and order a public improvement hearing. And that hearing would be held in July. And prior to that meeting, we will meet with the neighbors to update them on the proposed assessment. So we've met with them already once back during the preliminary design phase to explain the project to them. And of course, they wanted to know the numbers, so I'm sure they'll be anxious to hear where we landed on the assessment. So The project is the project we reviewed at the last council meeting where you approved the plans and authorized bidding, so that's just reflected in the feasibility report. But, you know, essentially what we had to come up with the feasibility report is determine what the recommended assessments would be for the properties shown here in yellow that are adjacent to the improvements. This little City of Victoria parcel.
We can't see that.
Oh.
I'm looking on my computer.
Wow. How about that?
There, that's so much better, thank you. I see yellow now. That's good. All right, very good.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's a little late, it's been a long day.
It's Monday, I guess.
There we go.
Okay, so here are the properties shown in yellow. This graphic is included in your feasibility report. The City of Victoria parcel here is not highlighted yellow because we aren't going to assess ourselves for a little triangle piece of property. The city's funding the balance of the improvements outside of the assessment, so we just included that amount in the overall project amount. So these are the parcels that we evaluated for assessments, and here is the proposed assessment roll. So essentially, each of the residential properties, which primarily is what we're dealing with in this location, is residential properties, their proposed assessment would be $12,000. And then the Spread Enterprises building is essentially 2.5 times wider than the residential properties in this area. So, you know, had that property been developed with houses on it, you would have 2.5 times the lots. So their proposed assessment is $30,000. So we did note in the Three Rivers Park District properties, we've received communication from Three Rivers Park District that indicates that they don't pay assessments. So the city attorney will be assisting us in sorting through that before you would actually take action on any of the assessments. This $30,000 number, back to Spread Enterprises, is consistent with what the property owners, the businesses paid for their assessments, the commercial buildings in the 2018 project. So we shared those numbers at that neighborhood meeting so they could have some idea of what was coming. So I do think this will be consistent with what they were expecting, but certainly we'll have that conversation at our neighborhood meeting, and then we hold a hearing. And the council will get to hear directly from the property owners any comments that they would have about the proposed assessments. Just back up here to the schedule. So here we are on June 13th. What you would be acting on tonight would be accepting the report and calling for the hearing. We're going to be opening bids on June 30th, tentatively, is our current bid date. And then on July 11th, you would hold the public hearing and then make a decision at that point about whether you would be proceeding with the assessments. In order to do that, the council would need to officially order the improvement, and that does require 4/5 majority of the council in order to move forward with those assessments. And then that night, you would also be asked to consider accepting the bids and awarding the contract, assuming the bids come in favorably. The final assessment hearing, where the assessments actually get levied, wouldn't be until after the project's complete. What we'll have to talk through with Trish is if we're going to levy those this year or wait to do it in 2023. That's typically what we do on projects where we wait to put the second lift of asphalt down. The other thing that historically the council has favored that approach is it does give property owners a little bit more time to plan. So if you hold the final assessment hearing in 2023, they don't have to start paying it till 2024. So it gives them a little bit more time to save if they want to prepay it off in full, which happens often in Victoria. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Black,
I have
please.
questions. So this improvement, is this the entire road or just on the right-hand side?
So we are reconstructing the street in its entirety. So the road there that exists there today doesn't have the city standard street section underneath it. So we'll be reconstructing the road to city standards. As part of that, though, we will be adding parking and landscaping along the north side of the road. But typically the city doesn't assess for that part of the project. Historically, those types of amenities, so the parking lots, the parking bays, the extra wide sidewalk, the lighting, the landscaping has historically in downtown been paid with TIF funds. So we'll be looking at TIF pooling funds, and then long-term street maintenance funds. Sewer and water is getting replaced in this quarter too, so there'll be sewer and water utility funds that will help fund this project. So it really is just the reconstruction of the street and the storm sewer that it has historically been assessed downtown.
Councilmember Black?
The next thing is the Boyer property. I thought the developer purchased that. Wouldn't that be included with their deal?
So the portion of the project that's included here is only a little part of the Boyer property. So we're treating that consistent with its current residential use. You already authorized preliminary design for the next phase of the improvements, which would include reconstruction and construction of a new portion of Stieger Lake Lane all around their building. Under your assessment policy, when you're talking about new infrastructure, the policy calls for 100% of those costs to be assessed to the benefiting property owner. So they will be paying a significant assessment associated with the project that will be before you over the winter.
Okay, and then I looked up the Three Rivers Park, and they're funded by levy, our tax dollars. So how are we going to assess them?
I think I'll turn that over to Attorney Vos to speak
how
about
could you
our
assess
ability to assess other governmental
Park system
unities.
that's funded by our taxpayers.
Mr. Vos, are you?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, well, I guess the technical answer is that other governmental entities, as a general matter, are taxable and assessable entities. So when a city does public improvements that benefit, let's say, a county public works building in that city, that county facility can be assessed. So just legally, that's possible. It's legally doable. The point you're making maybe is one that Karen and I have talked about, which is that you'll recall that the amount of assessment we can impose on any property, whether it's government property or private property, is capped at the amount of benefit that property gets from the public improvement. So you build a new road, the properties abutting that new road are going to be increased in value by that new road, and that's the cap. The amount of that increase on each of those properties is the cap on how much can be assessed to those properties. In the case of park property, there is a statute that the Three Rivers Park District has pointed us at that says when you think about how much benefit, how much increase in value the parkland gets from your improvements, you can only view that land as parkland. You can't view that as future development land or future land that could be subdivided and used for another purpose. You have to view it as parkland, which begs the question that I think, Councilmember, you're raising, which is, is there any benefit in the value to the park property from a city street project? I think Karen and I are wrestling with that now, but it's a totally legitimate point. They're making the point that you're not, city, increasing the value of our park land by your new road or your improved road. And we're going to have to deal with that. And the conclusion, council member, may be that there won't be an assessment. There won't be any dollar amount assessed to the park property. What we don't want to do, and I'll stop talking, what we don't want to do, though, is just give up on considering assessment of the property simply because it's park property. We need to treat everybody equally to the extent we can. And so we want to look at all properties that abut and are potentially improved, increased in value by public improvements. We have to take a look at that to treat everybody fairly. So long-winded answer, but I hear what you're saying, and we're looking at that.
Yeah, because we're improving this road so that we can connect to the downtown. I don't know how the property owners abutting this road are increased in value. How are they increased in value?
People are going to want to develop it, right? We're going to bring all the amenities and we're going to bring businesses into the 13 acres. Guess who's going to want to come into these other properties? right? Like their
So
their
for selling
value-
it.
Yes, their value is going to increase greatly.
I thought Kara also said that the assessment is solely to bring it up to city standards. It's not including any of the parking, the trees, right?
Right.
It hasn't been updated in I don't know how many years, right? So we're bringing it up to city standards, right? So if it were any other road that was below city standards, what would be our process?
Spread Enterprises, is that all sports? All
Yeah,
power sports?
Ms. Guerin, please.
Okay, I'm going to answer a couple of different questions that just came up that I think are important to note on the record. Councilmember Heber's correct. The road is very old. We put a simple mill and overlay on it in about 2011 before the big Highway 5 project, but the conditions underneath it are poor. So we're just doing kind of minor maintenance on it until it gets reconstructed to have the sand section that all of our streets have been reconstructed to. Not all of them, the majority of our streets have been reconstructed to. So the road is in need of improvement, and it's the portion of that road being improved that is benefiting those property owners as they exist today, consistent with our assessment practice and policy that we've implemented on every other project except for Marsh Lake Road, dating back to 2004.
Thank you. Council, questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Gunderson, please.
Are we giving you enough time to answer those questions? To be able to wrestle with that question on whether we can assess or not? I mean, is it too tight of a time frame to see those questions through, or are we good?
No, Mayor and Council, it's not. I mean, candidly, the argument that Three Rivers Park District is making to us is not exactly what I anticipated, frankly, but it is in a basic sense what we anticipated, which is that they were going to say to us, we don't get any increase in value, we don't get any benefit from your road improvements, and so we shouldn't be assessed. We anticipated that argument. I think Kara wanted to try to fairly apply your assessment policy by showing that land as a potentially assessed piece of property. So that's what you see in front of you. We have plenty of time, though, to figure out when we come back. Remember, your next hearing, the hearing that you would call for tonight, is just on ordering the project. There will be another hearing further down the road, no pun intended, to establish the final assessment amount. So we're not establishing at the hearing in July the final assessment amounts. That will happen later in the process. So we'll have plenty of time.
Council?
I just have one question. This may be
Councilmember Roberts.
so. What's the determination of where we stopped? Right, like you can see. I don't know how far that is from the end of, like why we didn't go all the why don't we go all the way to Highway 5 basically type thing, like right before obviously of Highway 5, but.
Certainly. There is a technical answer for that, Councilmember Roberts. This is the area where the road is potentially going to start curving off of its current alignment and up into the new section. So we wanted to make sure that all the infrastructure we built with this project would be able to be permanent. So this kind of extended area out here is just where we'll be transitioning to match into the existing pavement. We do need to construct a temporary stormwater pond that we'll have to convey water to, and we will be extending water services out to make sure that when they start their building, they don't have to rip into the road as part of it. But yeah, we had to work through with the development team what the right stopping location was for that.
So that road's not gonna, so that road's not gonna go out to Highway 5 anymore?
So on the preliminary footprint that I don't have handy here, we show Stieger Lake Lane extending up through the property and then out to County Road 11, and then a new roadway connection coming down to 5, generally in the same location of what's there, but not on the same alignment.
Okay.
That, of course, is an issue that involves MnDOT that we're continuing to work on, working through that access location with them as well, as part of the other work the council authorized.
So fun. Okay.
All right, council, other questions? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
Motion for a resolution receiving and accepting the feasibility report for the Stieger Lake Lane West Phase 1 improvements and calling for a hearing on improvements.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, council, there are no more items on our regular agenda this evening. Now we'll move on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, anything from?
Mayor and council, I have no pending litigation to report to you and no legally significant matters to talk to you about.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a quick note. You haven't yet noticed, we've got beautiful new artwork in our chambers here. These are an array of artwork from multiple different artists that are metro area artists. One actually used to be a Victoria resident. And so there are about 15 pieces for this show, which will be on for another month.
To the end of July.
To the end of July. There's not a specific theme, but it's a lot of watercolor, acrylic, and oil. So some beautiful paintings. Just want to remind everyone, open for everybody to view when City Hall hours are open. So we welcome, and we have seen and welcomed people to come in and view the artwork. So we encourage people to do that. And then all the artwork is also available for sale.
Terrific, thank you. Anything else from staff?
Nothing from staff.
All right, council.
I actually do. So,
Councilmember
this-
Roberts, please.
This last Friday was graduation day for our Chanhassen and Chaska seniors, including my son. So congratulations to the class of 2022.
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
That was a good one. Congratulations to meeting that milestone.
Anybody else?
Councilmember Black? She's so excited
I know
here.
you missed me last time.
Please, Councilmember Black.
Okay, so Classic Car Night, they reported they had 367 vehicles show up. And the restaurant said it was the best night ever for sales. So kudos to Classic Car Night. Keep it going. Also, I ended up representing the city during the Twin Cities Live presentations while they were here. And I just want to say that it was so much fun. And I'm sorry that you missed it, but she had a very special reason. So I took her place. And I just want you to know that when I was there, I was at Floyd's, and when I was there, people came up to me and told me how much they love Victoria. And I wanted to do a big shout out to Isaac as well, because one of them specifically mentioned him by name and said that he does an awesome job. So good luck for everybody. I mean, it was just so much fun.
Thanks to Twin Cities Live for
Yes.
profiling our beautiful community. They did such a wonderful job. So
5 days. They were here for the whole week.
if you have a chance to go out and find it and download it and watch it, it is really neat, and it does a beautiful job showcasing our community. And Judy had alluded to this, but I am so delighted and happy to announce the birth of my first granddaughter, Ella Grace Stahl. And I was off meeting her, so we are so thrilled about that. And she is as beautiful and wonderful as everyone would expect.
Proud grandma.
Yes, very, very proud, for sure. Councilmember Hebert, Councilmember Roberts, anything from you?
We can top that.
Yeah, great. That's a good note. Let's go out. We don't have anything else to talk about, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
And a second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.